What is up, you guys? Welcome back to E&E Teachers. My name is Miss Redacted. Today we are doing some more cartoon analysis. Get ready for the time of your life. And today we are looking at cartoons that are focused on the Gilded Age. So maybe you are learning about the Gilded Age right now. Maybe your teacher sent you this and said you're going to watch it right now. Thanks. But let's go ahead and get into it. So what is the Gilded Age? The Gilded Age is the time period where the U.S. was making a lot of economic and industrial progress. So this is the late 1800s, the early 1900s. So this is when our railroads are expanding, the light bulbs are being used, telegraphs are being used, we're starting to get phones. Things are just becoming a lot more connected and businesses are growing really rapidly. So our economy is zooming at this time. But a lot of people were like, hey, even though the economy is really good, I kind of don't like child labor. Or like, hey, even though the economy is really good, a lot of people get hurt at work and no one does anything about it. So even though it was a time of a ton of progress, it was also a time of a lot of issues, especially for working class Americans. So what you are going to do, if your teacher told you to, is to grab a paper and fold it into 4 sections. If you want to do this the way I did it, or if you just want to do bullet list, however you would like, because we are going to look at 4 cartoons. For every cartoon we look at, I want you to write down a symbol or person that stood out to you. And we are going to do the first one together so you can kind of see what I mean. So again, first you're going to write a symbol or a person that stood out to you. And then you are going to write a nice complete sentence explaining the main meaning of the cartoon. What is this artist trying to tell us? What are they talking about? What message are they sending? So let's go ahead and get into our first one here. This is from Lewis Hine. It was created around 1912. They're not 100% sure. And this is about child labor. Let me move myself over here. So let's go ahead and get into it because there is a lot here. So the best thing to do when you get a cartoon is look for words. See if there's a caption, see if there is a label. And here we see it says child labor employer on that guy's hand. So child labor, that's kids working. Employer, ER, means they're the boss. So like if I own a restaurant and I have lots of workers, I'm an employer, ER. Employee, EE, is like the worker. Employer is the manager. So we have the child labor employer, and that hand looks really, really powerful and strong. Generally, when something is drawn as large, that means that it has a lot of power. And you see the child labor employer, their hand is pushing down all of these kids. So that means, can these kids rise up? Can they get away? No. It's showing the child labor employer is kind of oppressing them and shoving them down. So let's look at what symbols we see here. We see the child labor employer has this big ring, that huge diamond ring, which is showing us this person is very rich. They also have, I think these are called cufflinks. They're the little things that go on men's shirts that keep them together, I guess. And it has a money sign on it. So it's showing again, this person has a lot of wealth off of child labor. And then when we look at these kids, they really look down bad. Like they don't have shoes on. Their clothes look kind of ratty. This kid in the front looks a little sad. So in this cartoon, there's a lot to break down, but we really see the child labor employer is making lots of money and is pushing down those kids. So like I promised you, we are going to do the first one together. So let's look at what we wrote. What is a symbol or person that stood out to you? I'm going to go back real quick. So a symbol, you could say the hand is a symbol for that oppression. You could say the ring, like we talked about, for wealth. You could say the children stick out to you because they look really sad. So again, symbol or person, just pick one nice detail and go ahead and write that down. And then the main meaning of this cartoon. I would say the main meaning of this cartoon is that child labor employers are hurting children and they're making lots of money off of employing children. Main meaning should be really specific to this cartoon. It's not really maybe like an English class or when we're looking at poetry where the meaning would be like, friendship is the number one important thing. Main meaning should be really focused on what is the artist trying to tell us. Main meaning in social studies is a lot more literal than main meaning in English class. So we just did that first one together. We're going to move on to the second one. You are going to be filling in the rest on your own. So to give you a reminder, you're telling me what's one important symbol or person, and then what is the main meaning of the cartoon. This is from 1871. The artist is Thomas Nast, and it is called Under the Thumb. So again, what we always say, look for words first. So you can see under the thumb, the boss says, well, what are you going to do about it? And then when we look at the cartoon, you can see here's New Jersey. New Jersey, so you see it says home. You can see a public school, manufacturers. New Jersey seems like it's vibing. New Jersey seems pretty good. And then here's New York. Does it seem like New York is doing good? Not particularly. New York is not doing awesome here. And why is New York not doing awesome? They're under this thumb. It's like pushing them down, kind of similar to the last one, being pushed down. And then what other words do we see? William Tweed. William Tweed is who this cartoon is about. William Tweed, I could have a whole nother video all about this man. William Tweed is kind of not the greatest guy ever. He created a lot of corruption in New York during this time and made lots of money off people. So he would control a lot of industries and control a lot of neighborhoods and just really exploit people, force people to vote for his friends, get his friends to bribe him so that they could win elections. The whole thing was really just less than ideal. So that's why we can see here William Tweed is pushing down New York. And when we look at it, what's bigger, New York or William Tweed? In this cartoon, William Tweed is bigger. So that's showing that William Tweed has a lot of power. And it seems like New Jersey has some stuff that New York does not, especially when we see this public school here. When child labor was really prominent in the US, we did not have public schools available to all children. So I think this artist might be trying to point out that a lot of kids in New York are not going to school and they are being forced to work in factories. So make sure you filled in your little paper. We're going to move on to our third cartoon. Love this cartoon, not because it's positive, but just because there's a lot going on. So this was created by Kepler. This was created in 1904. So like I said, we start with words. So let's look at the middle here. It says Standard Oil. Standard Oil was a huge company owned by Rockefeller. Like if you ever heard people make the joke, what am I, a Rockefeller? It's because Rockefeller was like the richest guy. And he owns Standard Oil. Oil like that we use for like trains and cars, not like olive oil that you cook with. So Standard Oil right here looks like it's very large. It looks like it has a lot of power. Let's look at some of our other words. You can see this says Capitol, State House, White House. What is the Standard Oil doing? It looks like Standard Oil, this oil barrel, is an octopus that is grabbing everything up. It is grabbing up these specific things. And we have to think about, why did they use the Capitol and the White House and the State House? Why didn't they just draw like a little house? It's because Standard Oil is taking control of lots of government positions. They're telling politicians, pass this law. Let me do what I want. Let me build a railroad here. Standard Oil is so powerful. It's even more powerful than our government. Because when you look at this, it doesn't look like the Capitol building has much power. It looks like Standard Oil is grabbing it. You can also see the Standard Oil octopus grabbing all of these men wearing suits. These looks like they may be workers or government officials, and you can see it says like steel, copper. They're grabbing other businesses as well. So you can see they're grabbing our government, they're grabbing people, they're grabbing businesses, they're grabbing everything. So make sure you wrote down a detail. Maybe it was a person, maybe it was the White House, maybe it was the barrel, and then write down the main meaning here. And I think the main meaning here is that the company Standard Oil is extremely powerful and is influencing our government and our businesses. Again, main meaning should be very focused on some key words and key concepts that you're seeing in this cartoon. If you just wrote businesses have power, no, that is not specific enough. You're not wrong, but it's not as good as it could be. So we're going to move on to, I believe, our last cartoon. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said I loved the last one because I love this one even more. I actually want to get this framed in my house. We're going to be here a minute. There's lots of different symbols you could pick to write here. So like always, we start with words. This is from 1889. This is Kepler. It is called the Bosses of the Senate. The Senate meaning part of Congress. That is who passes laws and things like that. This is not a civics video, so I'll leave it at that. So part of our government is called the Senate. And when we look, these are the senators down here, these little guys. These big guys in the back look very powerful because, again, if something's big, that means it's important and powerful. So let's get into the words. We can see here entrance for monopolist. What is a monopolist? when you are playing Monopoly, your goal is to own everything. If I am a monopolist, that means I own a business and no one else does. Let's say I own a sunglasses business. I'm Miss Redacted and I own Miss Redacted sunglasses. I am the only sunglasses business in all of America. I'm the only store that you can buy sunglasses from. Am I going to charge $1 for sunglasses? No. I'm going to charge $100 for sunglasses because you don't have a choice and you can't go anywhere else. So that's how monopolies work. When one business or one person controls it, they can kind of charge whatever they want and then they get really, really powerful. So this is showing that we are letting monopolists influence our government. We're letting them into the Senate and giving their opinions. And who are these monopolists? If you read their bellies, it says Standard Oil, like we talked about earlier, coal, sugar, iron, steel beam. And the reason it says trust, it's not like, oh, you're my friend, I trust you. A trust is when a couple businesses come together and it's like a group. There's more detail than that on the legalities of it, but just know a trust is like a really powerful business. So you can see all these trusts are in Congress and they're looking at these senators, and these senators know that they're behind them. So let's keep going with our words. We can see up here where it says the people's entrance. The people is you and me. That's the voters. That's regular old workers, regular people walking on the street. Are we allowed in the Senate? No, that door is closed. And then this sign right here, this is a Senate of the monopolist, by the monopolist, and for the monopolist. So does it seem like the government at this time is more focused on the monopolist business leaders or the people? It seems like they're very focused on these business leaders. So let's talk about some more symbols here. When we look at these guys, we can see like the Standard Oil Trust, he looks like a barrel of oil. Ha ha, great symbol. But if you look closer, they all look like money bags. Do you see their little necklaces, like the tie on a bag, and then they have the money symbol on their chest, and then they are very large. They're very big. Generally, especially at this time, if someone drew a cartoon of someone who looked really big and fat and tall, it kind of meant that they were greedy because they're so big and they're taking up all this space. Like I mentioned, big can mean powerful, it can mean greedy, it can mean a couple different things. So hopefully you wrote down at least one of these symbols. We had the doors, we had the bags, we had the oil barrel, all of these things. And again, one symbol could be that the senators are drawn very small and the monopolists are drawn very, very large. And the title of it, Bosses of the Senate, is kind of showing we're letting businesses be in control of the Senate in 1889. And I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful to you. If your teacher made you watch this, I hope it was a painless experience. Check out E&E Teachers for more resources like this, and I will see you next time.